Coming up on a newscast, the nation's truckers go on strike demanding a minimum freight guarantee extension. Authorities signal a possible executive order to end it. South Korea's first 2022 World Cup match ends in a scoreless draw. Next game is on Monday against Ghana. Pirates in waters near West Africa released an oil tanker. Among the crew that were on board, 2 South Korean nationals are reportedly unharmed. Hello, hope you're wrapping up the week well. I'm Daniel Che here to bring the latest. Let's begin with our top story. Truck drivers in South Korea go on a nationwide strike, causing major logistics disruptions. Immediate impact is felt on day one, with movement of containers at local ports decrease significantly. Lee Dae-hyun starts us off.
A nationwide truck driver strike is causing disruptions in logistics. Ceremonies to mark the start of the strike were held on Thursday morning at the 16 regional branches of the Cargo Truckers Solidarity under the Korean Federation of Trade Unions. According to the Truckers Union, around 11,000 people gathered across the 16 locations. The first strike back in June caused major production disruptions and cost businesses $1.2 billion. Truck drivers are calling for guarantees on minimum payments based on operating costs. As a partial compromise, the government and the ruling People Power Party decided to extend the minimum pay guarantees for another 3 years. They have been due to expire in December. However, the government firmly refused the union's demand that the system is adopted permanently and covers more drivers.
We agreed not to expand the system to drivers in the 5 requested industries, like steel and automobiles, as they are relatively well paid, and that could increase logistics costs for the public.
On the first day of the strike, the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport confirmed that container movement was down by 60% from the average volume. Companies, too, are bracing for the strike. Korea Cement Association says cement shipments were expected to reach 200,000 tons on Thursday, but were at less than 10,000 tons, causing a loss of about $14 million. The steel industry is also reporting disruptions. Hyundai Steel's factory in Pohang said they haven't been able to ship anything for 2 days in a row. 6 economic organizations in the country, including the Korea Chamber of Commerce and Industry, on Thursday urged truck drivers to stop the strike as the economy is currently undergoing a difficult time. President Yoon Suk-yeol warned the union that the government will consider legal sanctions on transport refusals, as by law, the land minister can invoke a work initiation order in the event logistics companies or workers cause large disruptions to cargo delivery by refusing to work without justification. But as unionized workers of Seoul Metro and Korea Railroad corporations are also scheduled to go on strikes in the coming weeks, more economic damage is expected. Lee Dae-hyun, Arirang News.
Here in the nation, fine dust levels go up to concerning levels at certain times of the year, like right now. To fight this trend, high-emitting diesel vehicles will be banned in select cities. Kim Bo-kyung outlines the changes to come.
Fine dust levels in South Korea have improved, but the country wants to do more to reduce them further. Presiding over a meeting of the 10th Special Committee on Fine Dust on Friday, Prime Minister Han Duk-soo said that fine dust levels last year dropped to 18 micrograms per cubic meter from 26 in 2015. Yet the Prime Minister said that the aim is to reach the average density level of the OECD countries by 2027. And to do that, Korea will launch its now annual seasonal fine dust management program starting December 1st to the last day of March next year.
The Yoon administration plans to cut the level of ultrafine dust to 13 micrograms per cubic meter by 2027, which is the average level of the OECD countries. This management program aims to cut ultrafine dust and its emission by 1 to 10% compared to last year's levels.
The government will also expand the regions where Grade 5 diesel vehicles, the lowest in the country's 5-tier emission standard, are banned, from just the Greater Seoul area to the cities of Busan and Daegu as well. Grade 5 vehicles fitted with what's called the diesel particulate filter will be exempt, but violators could face daily fines of 100,000 won or roughly $75. The country will also strengthen sector-specific management of major sources of emissions, such as large-scale workplaces, coal power plants, construction sites, and ports. Out of the 53 government-owned coal plants, several will halt operations and 44 will run at a maximum power output at 80%. Another measure announced by the Prime Minister was related to fine dust forecasts. They will be made 36 hours ahead of time instead of the current 12.
By forecasting the levels 36 hours earlier, instead of 12 hours like it is now, it means that people will be able to plan their days a bit better. The government can also prepare necessary measures much more thoroughly.
The earlier forecasts will start from next Monday, and the country will also increase the number of construction sites nearby that display the fine dust density levels in real time. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
Starting next month, it's going to get more expensive to take a taxi late at night in Seoul. The nighttime surcharge will be imposed from 10 p.m. instead of midnight. At peak hours, it'll double to 40% of the base fare. The base fare is 3,800 won, meaning with the surcharge, the shortest ride will cost a little over 5,300 won, or about $4. This applies to ordinary cabs, but for the first time, large and deluxe taxis will also be able to apply a surcharge of 20%. The city is trying to relieve a shortage of cabs at night. It previously announced the base fare itself will go up for all taxis next February. Ordinary cabs by 1,000 won, and that will cover a shorter distance of 1.6 kilometers instead of 2. The base fare for deluxe taxis will go up by 500 won to 7,000. Growth in the global economy next year is expected to be as weak as the 2009 level. According to the Institute of International Finance, an association for the global financial services industry, global GDP growth in 2023 will slow to 1.2%. Analysts attributed the expected slowdown to what they called the forever war in Ukraine. The economy of Europe, the region most affected by the war, is set to shrink by 2%. Meanwhile, the GDP in the United States is expected to grow by 1%. The institute predicts the biggest driver for growth will be China if it relaxes its harsh COVID-19 restrictions. Turning our attention to some World Cup action now, Team Korea opened its campaign with a draw against Uruguay. While neither side scored, the Taeguk Warriors surprised experts with some impressive offensive prowess against a significantly higher-ranked team. Kim Yo-sun brings the highlights from that match.
It was a tightly contested match. Despite South Korea coming into the game as underdogs based on Uruguay's superior FIFA ranking, the Group H matchup at the Education City Stadium just west of Doha finished scoreless on Thursday. Team Korea's captain Son Heung-min, who wore a black protective mask over his face while he recovers from a facial fracture, prefers over his fitness to rest by playing the full 90 minutes. He even had a chance in the closing moments of the game, but dragged his long-range shot just wide. With opportunities scarce, South Korea's best chance came in the 34th minute when a pass found Hwang Hee-jo in space in the box. But he shot over the bar, missing the opportunity to put Team Korea ahead. In a match where the Taeguk Warriors often frustrated the two-time World Cup winners, it was Uruguay that had the best opportunity to score in the 43rd minute when Diego Godin hit the post with a header. Federico Valverde also hit the goalpost in the 89th minute. Following the game, South Korean head coach Paulo Bento said that he was pleased with his team's performance in a competitive match played at a very high level. South Korea will next face Ghana in Group H, while Uruguay will play Portugal, with both games scheduled for next Monday. Kim Yo-sun, Arirang News.
Pirates in waters near West Africa released an oil tanker with the people on board. 2 South Korean nationals were part of the crew, and they are reportedly unharmed. Kim Da-mi has the latest.
2 South Koreans and 17 Indonesian sailors held hostage by pirates in international waters near West Africa were released unharmed and are now safe and sound. The 2 Korean nationals were the captain and the ship's engineer. They were missing at around 7 a.m. Korea time on Thursday and were let go on Friday at around noon. After losing contact, the ship was taken by the pirates about 166 kilometers south of Côte d'Ivoire. According to sources of Foreign Ministry, the tanker they were on, B Ocean, is a 4,000-tonner owned by the South Korean shipping firm SK Shipping. The pirates reportedly stole some of the oil stored in the tanker and destroyed the ship's communication channels and other equipment. After the release, B Ocean headed back to Abidjan, the main port and biggest city in Côte d'Ivoire. Once the ship gets back to the port, the local Korean embassy plans to check on the well-being of the Koreans and provide them with necessary assistance. Kim Da-mi, Arirang News.
With the ongoing energy crisis in Europe, relevant EU ministers have decided to jointly purchase 15% of the volume needed for storage for next year, but agreed to exclude Russian gas. According to TASS, this was decided during an informal meeting in Brussels on Thursday local time. Citing a statement from the European Commission, it said the member states made it explicit that Russian gas will be excluded from joint purchasing. The news agency noted that it's yet to be formally adopted, with a meeting of the EU Energy Council not due until December. Meanwhile, also during the session, the European officials failed to reach a consensus on gas price caps over a proposed price of €275 per megawatt hour after some claimed it was too expensive to be effective. China imposed new COVID-19 restrictions after new cases rose on Thursday to the highest level since the start of the pandemic. This is happening despite the drastic measures already enforced under its zero-COVID policy. The National Health Commission reported the latest daily tally exceeded 31,000. According to local media, 17 major cities have strengthened quarantine measures for people arriving from abroad. They have to get tested each day for 3 to 5 days after arrival, depending on the city. And for 5 days, they are not allowed to go to restaurants or other public venues. Most cities also require people entering to carry with them a negative result proof of a PCR test taken within 48 to 72 hours. A campaign has been launched by a South Korean civic organization to address distortion regarding the Great Wall of China in a world history textbook. But it's not the only one with errors, as there are multiple claims that the relic extends into Korean territory. Song Yoo-jin has the full story.
A few weeks ago, the Voluntary Agency Network of Korea, or VONK, a civic organization promoting South Korea and its history, found out that something was not right. A student had reported that a well-renowned history textbook contained distorted information in relation to the Korean peninsula. The book, a bestseller on the online shopping platform Amazon, includes a map of the Great Wall of China. The problem is that the eastern end reaches the Korean peninsula, an arbitrary extension of the wall's reach, something that China has been doing for decades. Back when the site was registered as a UNESCO World Heritage in 1987, China itself listed the wall's length as around 6,000 kilometers. But in 2009, the National Administration of Cultural Heritage extended the scope to over 8,000, and in 2012 to a whopping 21,000 kilometers. And now, the wall even crosses the border dividing China and the Korean peninsula. Then, what's the historical truth?
There's no record that shows that the Great Wall extended to the Korean peninsula. The map in this particular textbook describes how much of wall was rebuilt during the Ming Dynasty from the 14th to the 17th century. But historical texts and maps from this period have marked Shanhaiguan of China's Hebei province as the eastern end.
Unfortunately, Beijing's claim has already affected many history books, not only in Chinese, but in English too. Out of the more than 140 books and materials analyzed by VONK, 66 images of the Great Wall were found in 53 of them. Only 15 of them accurately mark the wall's eastern end, while the rest included the territories of ancient Korean kingdoms such as Goguryeo and Balhae and the fortresses. So far, the textbook's publisher hasn't responded to Arirang News' request for comment. VONK has sent a letter of protest asking for an amendment. But public awareness and participation are needed.
Unfortunately, people are much less aware of this issue when compared to China claiming that kimchi and hanbok are theirs. So we've started an online petition, receiving over 10,000 signatures, and created English posts pointing out this historical distortion. Just sharing and tagging these posts on social media could be a big help.
Though it may take time, this collective action could be the start of meaningful change. 송유진, Arirang News.
The tragic Itaewon crowd crush has led many to worry about what other potential dangers could come from massive events that brings people together. Is the densely populated city of Seoul truly ready to prevent future disasters? Kim Hyun-sung looks into the capital's safety preparedness.
4 years ago, a fire started here in Jongno Central, Seoul. The fire spread quickly through a cheap housing building. The building's narrow hallways and the lack of sprinklers meant many people couldn't escape to safety. 7 people died and 11 were injured. In Seoul, housing is scarce and rents sky high, so many are left with no choice but cheap subpar living quarters that are often unsafe. When people think of accidents that can happen due to overcrowding, they usually think of stampedes or crowd crushes. But this Jongno fire was another deadly example of accidents that can happen due to overcrowding. The capital city of Korea, Seoul, is bustling with more than 9 million people, and more than 15,000 people are crammed into each square kilometer. That's more than double the density of Tokyo or New York, and about triple that of London.
Because we experience overcrowding every day, from living to going into work, we've become unaware that these situations can be dangerous. The recent Itaewon disasters led us to become aware of the danger, and it could lead to meaningful efforts to address other potential dangers.
Clustered living quarters, jam-packed subway trains, or buses during rush hour, festivals, or anywhere big crowds flock to can be more vulnerable to disasters, anything from a crowd crush to a fire or earthquake. But in terms of safety measures, experts say that South Korea is nowhere near ready.
South Korea developed so quickly that it didn't have time to look back and address the accidents or side effects that happened along the way. Many people pride South Korea on being a developed country, but the way I see it, in terms of safety, it's still developing.
So here's what experts are suggesting. First, better safety education. They say the current education system does not prepare students for various disaster situations, nor is it enough for students to become fully acquainted with precautionary measures. Second, a clear person or department in charge when it comes to safety.
When there's an event that doesn't have a clear host, like the one in Itaewon, the local government, the police force, and fire department have to be more hands-on to reduce the chance of accidents.
And third, better safety measures for the underprivileged, who are more exposed to threats in their living and working conditions. Even though a densely packed city does have its advantages, everything from fast internet and efficient water and sewage systems to hyper-convenience in delivery and commerce, it's now time to re-evaluate the city's safety so that hopefully there are no more accidents due to overcrowding. Kim Hyun-sung, Arirang News.
Moving on to other stories now, after BTS member Jungkook performed the song Dreamers at the World Cup opening ceremony, the K-pop star has been getting a lot of attention, even his tattoos. A tattooist who worked with him says there is still a lot of misconceptions about the craft and expressed hopes of changing such perceptions. Kim Jung-sil explains further.
Meet Polek, a tattoo artist here in South Korea who has worked with Jungkook and other members of BTS.
The first thing you notice when you enter Polek's studio is this wall of fame with autographs from all the members of BTS.
Polek is the one who tattooed the number 7 on each of the 7 BTS members, giving them a matching tattoo as a memento of their 9 years together.
Despite being the absolute top stars, BTS members were very considerate of me and tried to make me feel comfortable during the entire process.
But not everyone in South Korea is welcoming of this recent tattoo hype.
I think senior citizens can be quite negative. They think people with tattoos are delinquents. So people my age or older are not that fond of it.
First of all, it used to be a symbol of gangsters in the past. Even when it's portrayed in the media, gangsters and the mafia all have tattoos. So senior citizens give me the eye when I walk past them even to this day.
Some of Pollock's customers say their lives have changed because of his tattoos.
I have scars on this side of my arm, so I never wore t-shirts or other clothing that would reveal my scars. But after getting Pollock's tattoos, I am more confident about wearing those clothes.
What I found really special for tattoo or poly tattoos is that it's like fine art. It's like you have a painting on your body, a beautiful and creative and colorful.
To change the stereotypes about tattoos, Pollock hosts various exhibitions of his artwork and donates his work for free. Earlier in November, he drew paintings that fit on the wheels of a wheelchair used by YouTuber Miracle. The blue rose represents miracles and the moon, hope. Pollock says he hopes one day that tattoos can be accepted in South Korea just like any other type of art. Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
We've seen robots making and serving coffee, but they still seem to struggle with more intricate tasks. A new model has been developed to not only pinch a pin off a flat table surface or pick up a heavy box, but also thread that needle and pack the contents of the package. The tech is based on an elephant's trunk. Yoon-jin gets us better acquainted with the advancements.
This robot arm can prepare for a special occasion all on its own, from wrapping a gift to lighting a candle on a cake. A simple flower arrangement is no problem for this robot. It can pick up flowers of various shapes and sizes without having to change any attachments. Even for some items that are tough to pick up with a human hand, this robot has no difficulties. The key technology at the tip of this robot hand mimics an elephant nose. Objects that are small or have an edge are pinched, and for bigger or heavier objects, the tip increases suction and secures its grip. This latest model combines the advantages of both tongs and suction pads. It can grip a needle that's 1/100th of its size or a fragile potato chip that breaks easily. The robot arm also doesn't require complex sensors or intricate AI learning.
This robot arm operates by turning on and off pneumatic cylinder. The arm's advanced technology makes all its movements possible without AI or other control technology.
The research team behind this robot hand expect its performance to be even better if sensor technology or artificial intelligence is incorporated into its system. The wide range of functions this robot hand is capable of, from packaging boxes to doing detailed tasks, means it could be put to use in everyday life as well as various industries. Yoon-jin, Arirang News.
Make sure to bundle up extra warm for this weekend. A surge of Arctic air will filter into the nation, and South Korea will see a major drop in overall temperatures. For tomorrow, readings will plummet to single figures for the daytime, with highs only reaching 7 degrees Celsius in Seoul. More blustery, cool conditions are on the way for Sunday, with temperatures below freezing forecast for the morning hours. The drastic drop in readings could easily lead to catching a cold, so please be extra careful. Until tomorrow dawn, central parts of the country and the surrounding regions will see scattered outbreaks of rainfall. For the Seoul metropolitan area, Chungcheongu and Jeollabuk-do provinces expect about 5 millimeters. Keep in mind that thunder and lightning will also follow. Tomorrow, Seoul will be starting off at 6 degrees, Daejeon and Daegu at 7 degrees. Daily highs in Seoul will get up to 7 degrees, Gwangju 15, Busan will be reaching 18 degrees. For early next week, expect nationwide showers, and after the rain, frigid mornings with minus figures will frequently appear in the forecast. That's all for now, and here are the weather conditions around the world.
It's time to wrap things up. As always, thank you for staying with us.